Today, Homeworthy takes you inside 4 colorful homes where bold patterns, vibrant palettes, and fearless design choices shape every space. In Charlotte, North Carolina, designer Holly Hollingsworth Phillips welcomes us into her renovated childhood home, layering antiques, artwork, and lively textiles influenced by a lifelong passion for interiors. And then we visit Patricia Mae Olson, who fills her home with signature Dana Gibson patterns and playful combinations of green, pink, and yellow, reflecting her fashion background and love of expressive design. And then we visit Marcie Bond's 1973 dollhouse. It pairs nostalgic Florida charm with punchy color, vintage finds, and Bahamian-inspired decorative moments. And then in Los Angeles, textile designer Dani Dazey reveals her retro-inspired Dreamhouse, where saturated hues, custom murals, and bold pattern transform the home into a fully immersive creative environment. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. I'm Allison Kenworthy, the founder of Homeworthy, and we take you inside the world's most beautifully decorated homes and introduce you to the brilliant people who live there.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Liz Lang. Welcome to Grey Gardens.
Click the join button below to access all of our latest episodes ad-free and watch extended cuts of this and other homes, opening the doors to new rooms and exclusive content featuring our beloved hosts.
I can't wait to see, I'm so excited.
And if you're looking to shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy tastemakers, be sure to use the product links below or scan the QR code on screen to find fabulous furniture, coffee table books, and accessories that can transform your house into a home. On today's episode of Homeworthy, we're in Charlotte, North Carolina, visiting Holly Hollingsworth Phillips, the owner of the English Room. Holly, an interior designer, lives in her renovated childhood home. Her style is elegant, eclectic, and colorful, blending old and new elements. Holly grew up surrounded by design, attending antique shows, and going to her first buying trip to Europe at age 11. Her love of pattern, art, and layering can be seen throughout her home. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. To shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy episodes, be sure to check out the product links below for amazing furniture, accessories, and more.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Holly Phillips. Welcome to my home in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'd love to show you around. Hi, I'm Holly Hollingsworth Phillips. I own the English Room, which is an interior design firm. We originally started importing English antiques, which is where the name came from. I also have a content creation business and blog that I've had for about 12 years. So that's kind of my side hustle because I love to shop. We are in Charlotte, North Carolina. My home is my family home that my parents built in 1963. I bought it from them about 5 years ago when they moved to a retirement community. I just couldn't let it go. And it's a very traditional Williamsburg home when they built it, filled with American antiques. And then the early 80s, my mother hired Mario Buada to decorate the house. So there are a few little remnants left of his design style. And I've taken it to a more eclectic, colorful, layered look. My style is a mix of traditional and contemporary. I love modern art and I love abstract art. I have a penchant for color that I cannot escape. I try and do neutral and then I end up layering it with all different colors and patterns. I love animal print. I love rainbows, which you'll see throughout the house. And I love just more color, and I love Iris Apfel's theory of more is more. This is my living room. Welcome. This is one of my favorite rooms in the house. I love all of the color and the neutral base. In here, I have one of my favorite art pieces by Sally King Benedict, who is a artist who's now living in Idaho, but she's represented by Haddell Brooks Gallery in Charlotte. We have some contemporary little scallop chairs with brass bases. One of my favorite sofas that I've had since I moved back to Charlotte in 1999, and it still hasn't been recovered, so good things can last. My favorite fabric is the curtain fabric, which is an Osborne and Little Christian Lacroix, and I love the kind of fluorescent flowers on the bold black background. I have lots of antiques mixed in with my contemporary pieces. This is a pretty little 18th century painted French table with a cabriole leg. The treasures and trinkets, everybody laughs because I can go anywhere and shop. Shopping is my gift. And I went to India with Egypt with a dear friend last year, and he said he'd already been, and he was like, there's absolutely nothing to buy. I bought about 50 little trinkets that are in this room and filled up an entire bag and had to take his bag. So I can shop anywhere. These are some chairs that were actually my parents that stayed here when they moved, and I recovered them in a contemporary fabric. Another interesting element in this room is I knew I wanted the walls to stay neutral so that all the bright colors and the art could pop, but I did a Tebow grass cloth that's a cream color with these little grommets or little additions of paint and squares on it. And they have a little metallic pearl sheen, which I think adds a nice element to the background. This is one of my favorite pieces. I bought it on a buying trip with my parents when I was younger. I'm the youngest of 4 children, and I would often get sent on buying trips with my parents when the older children were off doing things. So I started going on buying trips when I was 10 or 12. And so each trip, which you'll see in another room, I bought a painting, and occasionally I would buy a piece of furniture. So I think I bought this when I was a teenager at some point. I loved it. And I love the chamfered corner and the fretwork and all the things. So I've had it with me. As soon as I moved into my adult house after college, this was one of the first things I had, and I treasure it. These fun chairs are Bernhardt, covered in hide, which I love, and I love almost a little Western nod, which is unusual, obviously, in this house. These pretty goat skin tables, obviously vellum tops, little pretty legs with the little animal foot, an antique tortoise frame that's from England from a buying trip, another little Egypt treasure, which I have many of them. Obviously, I love purple from looking at my living room, you can tell. These purple lamps I bought from a vendor at High Point Market and adore them, and then just replaced the shades pretty recently from a vendor in Charleston. And I think updating shades makes such a difference, and I'm slowly changing everything in my house to a little more pattern, a little more color. This is my father and I in probably 1990 at my debutante ball. The sofa has a funny story. I ordered this years ago, and I sent my delivery guys to pick it up. And most clients don't generally go as bold as I go for myself. And the delivery guys, before they would put it on the truck, they were like, I think it's the wrong color. It's this crazy purple. You definitely don't want this sofa. They've put the wrong fabric on it. Well, turns out it's exactly what I wanted. So they brought it back, and I love it. But it's also one of the ones that I've probably had 15 years and not recovered. It has a little child damage if you look too close, but it's one of my favorites. This painting is from Shane Gallery, from a Nashville artist, and it is an encaustic, so it's covered in wax, and something about rainbows just appeals to me. I think it's so hopeful, and so I immediately saw it, and I also love the round shape. I think it's so unusual. So I immediately moved what I had here, which you'll now see in another room. Everything always moves around in my house. Nothing stays still. These are more of my favorite trinkets from various trips to India and Egypt. The scarab boxes, little thunderbirds. I bought this. This is another one that my friend Grant was like, why are you buying a big brass key chain? What are you going to do with that? But it makes me remember the resort in the middle of India that we went on a leopard safari. And so I don't think everything has to be fine in order to love it. Always changing out cushions in my house. And the reason is not only because I love cushions, but I have a dog that eats the corner of every single cushion. And if you pick up pillows in my house, there's likely an eaten corner. So I am constantly changing them out. Even today when I was fluffing, I noticed that we had more eaten cushions than I knew about. I collect match strikers, which I'll show you in the secretary in a minute, but this is just one of the many match strikers that I collect. This is my penchants for chinoiserie, and I love, 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 love anything lacquer. So I had wanted a black lacquer secretary and had looked for one for years on buying trips, and they were always outrageously priced. And so a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, soon after I moved into this house, that I found at auction at a local auction house that was such a steal, and I adore it. I've got my collection of antique match strikers here, my grandmother's paperweights that are Murano, and various things she collected from her travels, and a collection of tortoise boxes, and then one of my mini art books on stand. So I love this piece. I love all the storage. I love all the little secret drawers throughout. It's a great place to hide things, a great place for your stationery, and I just think it brings such depth to the room with the boldness and the height. Love this little chair. It is based on the Badminton House in a chair that was found, designed by Thomas Chippendale, in the Badminton House in England. And after college, I went to London and studied at Sotheby's Decorative Arts course. And this happened to be one of the pieces that I had to write my thesis on. And then I saw it at a antique shop in Charleston. So it's a copy, obviously, but it's a good 20th century copy. And I love the story of that. It's something that I had to study years ago. Welcome to my library. This room is a paneled walnut room that was my father's pride. He loves this room, and I threatened to lacquer it a bright blue when I first moved in, and I'm so glad I didn't, because I've actually come to love the dark wood. This room showcases lots of my art, mostly 18th century, 19th century sporting art from England. I started collecting these, that's what I was saying earlier, started collecting these dog paintings, and every buying trip I would get to buy a dog painting. So as you can see throughout the walls, there are dog paintings everywhere. I'm a huge dog lover. And so each one represents a different buying trip as a child going to England. So it's really special to me. And I also think it's a great juxtaposition from the contemporary art throughout the rest of the house. So this little settee, love seat, was here when my parents lived here. I recovered it. I love the bright, bold iCat pillows that are Samuel & Sons trim on Cole & Sons fabric. Little vintage pillow I found on Cherish. These little pillows are from Anthropology. This table has a great story. So I had always wanted a Charbet table with the antelope head, and they are an absolute fortune on First Dibs. And I had a search in my eBay for years for this, and it popped up one day that a pawn shop in Montana had these, and I bought them from there and had them shipped here. So that was a good find, like my secretary. Moving on, so more art. Langlois, this is one of my favorite English ones. Small farm scene above. I have so many books. Luckily, with my design blog, I often get sent new releases from a lot of Rizzoli and Assouline and different vendors. So I am lucky enough to have almost every design book that's out there. And I did them color coordinated because I love color and I thought it would be fun. More dog paintings behind the door with other little treasures mixed in. This is Alexis Walter, who's one of my favorite artists. You'll see more of her work throughout the house. Again, a whole wall of dog paintings. This one right here of the terrier, which I love terriers. We have 3 rescues right now, but have grown up with Jack Russells, and one of mine, the bad one that eats the pillows, is a Jack Russell. This, when I bought at Sotheby's, actually, at an estate sale 10, 15 years ago, it had Mark Hampton's name on the back written in chalk. No idea if it was his or if it was his client's, but that was an interesting story. This little table of the paper mache tray has a picture of Dignity and Impudence, which is a really famous English dog painting, and I had bought a copy of it, which is on the wall behind you. Bought a copy of it years ago and then found the tray, so I loved that. And then I needed to mix a little contemporary in here with all the traditional, so I did a contemporary lighting piece from Worlds Away. A campaign style chest with little black ebony insets and lion head mounts, which I adore. This table was a piece that my parents had and had left here. The frog tureen was a gift from my parents that we had always had this on a table in our house, and I had coveted it as well as some of my siblings, and I ended up getting it, so I was thrilled about that. I bought this in this painting last year, actually, in Parma. I love how rough and how almost abstract the design is. And it's from a 19th century Spanish artist, and I bought it in Italy at the Antiques Fair. This is a favorite. I grew up with Shelties as well as Jack Russells, so this picture of a collie I had to have when I saw it. So this room's just special to me because it's a place to house all my dog paintings. This is one of my favorite rooms to get away from the other people in the house. I will come in here and work on my computer. I'll come in here and look at my design books. It's a great place for me to get inspired because I'll just grab a book if I need a little inspiration. I think a really easy way to incorporate color is to do it with cushions and pillows. Is a great place to start because you can switch them out. It's not a huge commitment. I love bold colors, obviously, on sofas and upholstery. But I think if someone wants to buy neutral upholstery, they can easily punch it up with a throw over the back of something with a cushion. Lamp shades are an easy way to add color. I do think it's important when you move into a home, even though I lived here my entire childhood, I would have painted this when I first moved in and I would have regretted it. I think it's really important to live in spaces and kind of see how you're going to use them and learn how you're using them before you make drastic changes. Welcome to my primary bedroom. My favorite thing is this Bernhardt lucite and brass bed, acrylic and brass bed. I also adore the walls. They are grass cloth from Tebow, and they have glitter in them. It's called glitter grass. That was a little bit of a shock to my husband when we had this installed. He didn't get to say anything about the whole house, and he just got it as a surprise. This is a portrait of my son that I adore by Jonette Egley. This piece was part of Iris Apfel's collection, who, as you may know, is one of my favorite people and kind of icons that I adore. She unfortunately passed away this year, but she did a collection for Frontgate, and they actually reached out to me. Maybe it was Grandin Road, which is one of their other companies. They reached out to see if I would feature some of their pieces. And it's a double elephant wicker console, which I think is about the most fabulous thing ever. I have a love of elephants. My grandmother collected elephants, so I ended up with a few of hers. And for some reason, I've just always been drawn to them. I collect needlepoint pillows. I used to think I was just indecisive. Now I'm not sure. So my husband thinks I'm terribly indecisive. I'm actually really not. It's just on where we're going to go to dinner. But I thought it was a good nod to his side of the bed, and he can see my indecisiveness. This chest is also Bernhardt. When I redid the room a few years ago, I needed more storage, so I added this. I love the combination of mirror and brass. Contemporary painting by Dani Dazey, the colors and the abstract nature I adore. These were some lamps that I had picked up, I think, at a flea market, added some iCat shades that I had made locally. New rug that I recently purchased, had made specifically for this room in India, and thrilled with how it turned out. It was kind of, sent them a few colors and they just went with it, and it's turned out perfectly. Blackout roller shades, which I highly recommend, as well as blackout curtains. I love to sleep in pitch black dark. This chest is one that I also got as a child on a buying trip. It was kind of an era of English antiques where they were painting everything. So this is an old chest that was painted probably 20 years ago, and they put my mother's initials on the side and her logo of what the English room used to be the logo, which was a basket of flowers. So it's special to me. This is a portrait of my daughter by Deborah Walsh, and love completely different style than my son. I love how abstract and how simple line drawing this is. And it really captured her at that age. Again, another favorite pillow with the animals, the paint horse and the zebra. My crazy bookshelf over here, which, if you can believe it or not, have actually dwindled it down. It was even worse yesterday. I have a collection of cowboy boots, and I have a weakness for cowboy boots. So this is some of my favorite cowboy boots. These I had made in San Miguel de Allende by an American person, American lady named Carrie Cameron Art. and she hand paints the boots after they're made in Mexico. These are some Fraulein boots. These are the horse girl boots, so I had to have those. These are city boots, and they're my favorite Evil Eye boot. I was actually the model when they launched this collection because they knew how much I loved it. And it was photographed in this house. And then it's also filled with treasures like my Olympia Latan book clutches, which I have quite a few of and adore. Also collect so many things. Wicker animals, wicker funny shaped purses. I've always loved them and don't know why. A bag of my grandmother's, just kind of a mix of things that I love in here. A snakeskin rainbow purse. So it's a collection of boots from all different vendors and some of my favorite things. So I sleep on this side of the bed and I get to look at all of my favorite things. Even Ganesh, little Ganesh from India. These small pieces behind the bed are little abstract faces by Sally King Benedict, who's one of my favorite artists, represented at Hadel Brooks Gallery in Charlotte. The piece in the living room over the mantel is also her. These lamps are Bunny Williams' home. The bed is a mix of linens from lots of places: Peacock Alley, Annie Selke, Christy Kohut. And I went with a very neutral upholstery, a performance velvet on this bed because I wanted to be able to change the linens out, which I do often. Sometimes I'll have a printed duvet. Sometimes I'll have this Annie Selke puff. I love to switch it out all the time. I welcome you to my kitchen. This is one of the spaces that we actually redid and did a small addition out the back. The previous kitchen was pretty small here and a relatively small breakfast room with a little screened-in porch behind it. So we extended the whole space and made it bigger and one room versus a kitchen and breakfast room separate. I adore the size of this room. We spend probably 90% of our time in here if we're not sitting in the den. I am not a cook. I do not cook, but I love a pretty kitchen. This room is filled with lots of art. This is a recent addition from Hadel Brooks Gallery. Kim Testone, who's one of my favorite realist artists. I loved the Rainbow Sherbet. It spoke to me. And so I had seen one she'd done that was smaller and had commissioned her to do a larger one. This is an artist from Florida, represented at Gallery Orange in New Orleans. I bought Dolly when I was in New Orleans on a trip one time and couldn't resist it. Covered in acrylic, super thick, super dense. And then she makes all these individual weird little plastic figures, and she makes them herself, which I think is fascinating. And then I bought Queen Elizabeth right before she died, so I feel like I was meant to have her. This is the table where we spend all our casual family meals. This piece is really special. I bought it at a local auction house, Leland Little Gallery up in Hillsborough. And I had been watching this artist. I was so fascinated by these bold colors and bold shapes. Well, it turns out he's a well-known North Carolina folk artist. He had had a stroke, and after that happened, his vision was impaired. So he could only see bold shapes and he could only see bright colors. So that's why his work changed so drastically. And I love the large format. Everything he did after he had a stroke became large format. So it's one of my favorite pieces. These are a collection. This is Martin Summers as well as that. I bought it at High Point Market from a great antique dealer there. Lily Wallace, Alexis Walter, contemporary lighting from Hudson Valley. This is one of my favorite Jonathan Adler big acrylic pieces. Live edge table, loop chairs with a nod to Francis Elkin. They are bungalow home, which has changed to villa and home, but I love these chairs. I covered them in a green vinyl so they would be durable and you could wipe them off. The stripe on the banquette is also a performance fabric. These little chairs have been recovered once in 5 years already, and they get more use. Everybody sits here on phone calls. They sit here and check their phone. They sit here on their computer. My daughter does her homework sitting in these chairs. Everybody seems to love sitting in these funny little chairs. So we wanted 5 bar stools so everybody in the family had a place to sit. I wanted a huge island and a little prep. I decided to do the small prep sink in the island and a large sink over by the window. The backsplash is my favorite thing in the kitchen. It's from Artistic Tile, and it's these little brass stars inset in kind of a lantern shape tile. I had tried my darndest to find, there was a tile I saw on the floor of the Cathedral in Siena library that was these little stars, and I tried to have it made, but I couldn't find anybody to do it. So this kind of is a nod to the little stars of the Cathedral in Siena, Italy. Welcome to my bar. We love this space. I was a ambassador for Florence Broadhurst Wallpaper, which is what this wallpaper is, when they launched a few years ago from Australia and tried to reboot the collection. She was a 1960s and 70s graphic designer and artist that became well known and has a fascinating story. So I was excited to use that in my house. This is a piece by Hunt Sloanham, and it's a diamond dust bunny, which I love. This piece is from an artist in Atlanta represented by Mainline Art, and she does mostly horse pieces and sells her work at horse shows in Aiken, South Carolina. It looks like my horse, who's a paint with a little bit of white, and we have a huge love of martinis in this house, so I thought I needed that and was given it for Mother's Day a few years ago. This rug I bought last year in Morocco. I love the bold chartreuse and thought it was a nice tie-in to the hallway behind me. I have a ridiculous collection of glassware and more in storage, but I can't stop collecting them. These are favorites. Penland School of Art is in the North Carolina mountains and is very well known. This is Billy Bernstein, and he hand blows all of these up there. And I have a collection here as well as our mountain house. This painting is another favorite by Kim Testone, the same person who did the rainbow sherbet in the other room. I commissioned this for Father's Day a few years ago for my husband. It was really a gift for me, but we both love Bloody Marys as well. So I had her do a big Bloody Mary to represent our love of them. I added, wanted flat front cabinets like the kitchen and kept it very simple. I added an acrylic and brass mount hardware for this space to kind of make it a little more contemporary. This tray I also purchased years ago on a buying trip with the faux tortoise inset. It's one of my favorite things. And my collection of whiskey and tequila gets well used, especially around the holidays. Welcome to my den. This is really the heart of our home after the kitchen. We spend all of our time in here. Every night, this is where we kind of sit and decompress and watch TV. And my husband binges sports and all the things. This room is chock-a-blocked and filled with lots of treasures. This is a funny, the hearth is definitely a throwback to the Williamsburg era. This is actually a working grill. We don't use it because it smokes the house up, but we haven't gotten rid of it. I'm working on finding someone who can put a pizza oven there. This piece of art is a favorite by a local artist, Stephen Wilson. He is super interesting because he takes and does needlework basically on top of all of these luxury boxes. And I loved this series with the Gucci boxes and the eyes. Antique chest, pretty little acrylic candy dish. This is one of my favorite fabrics that I recently recovered a contemporary chair in. I found the chair on Cherish. The curtains are Stroheim, and I love the embroidery and I love the color of the chartreuse mixed with the purple and the pink. These chairs are also part of the Florence Broadhurst collection, and I love the parrots on the edges. And the fabric is from an English designer whose name has escaped me, but I love it's really soft to the hand and beautiful birds embroidered on it. On the mantle are ceramic pieces by an artist, Virginia Scotchy, who's represented at Haddell Brooks Gallery. And Jenna Julian is the artist on the piece that I commissioned for up here. It's such a long, skinny space. It was hard to find something, so I had to commission something. And over in this corner Yves Saint Laurent print, which I have very few prints because I really believe in original art. But an Yves Saint Laurent print of the year that I was born. He did his own Christmas cards every year, and he would draw them or paint them. And I particularly loved this one, and it was the year I was born, so I added that to my collection. This coffee table is one of my favorite finds ever. It has an inset bar. It is a coffee table from E.J. Victor. It is a copy of a French one that Aaron Lauder designed. So it was in Aaron Lauder's E.J. Victor collection. And I think the table was over $20,000. I happened to be driving to our mountain house and saw a sign for an E.J. Victor sample sale and went in and bought the table for less than a 20th of what it was retail. So that was one of my best finds ever. And I love it. It's huge. You can absolutely cut your leg off though on the corners. But it's one of my best finds. It has my ever-growing collection of books, which I'm always trying to thin out, but it's constantly growing. I also have a collection of crystals that a friend gave me, and then I started finding them, and then I also seem to find heart rocks. I don't know why, and I saved them. This is a fun piece that's beaded that I bought in Mexico in San Miguel de Allende, and it's fully beaded skull. And then the art above the sofa. This piece is something I picked up off the street and had framed in acrylic, which I adore. It was in Morocco last year in Marrakesh on the street. So I love that piece with the funny man and his sunglasses and his little watch. This is Gigi Collins. This big piece used to be in the living room where the rainbow was. Rainbow is now, and it is Alexis Walter, who's a New Orleans artist. And I bought that probably 15 years ago, and she has since blown up. She's represented at Haddell Brooks Gallery. She has her own gallery in New Orleans. She's amazing. The sofa is a chartreuse velvet that is one of my favorite colors. Obviously, did chartreuse down the hallway. And it has been really good because it's 110 inches long, so it's huge. And we can squish a lot of people on it. Then over here is Leslie Granger and then Ashley Longshore of Frida. And Ashley Longshore, if you don't know her, she's a New Orleans artist who's recently moved to Manhattan. She is hilarious to follow on Instagram and has a really great, funny perspective. Again, faux bois gesso table, two little pieces, a Nashville artist that does work in crayons that I purchased from Sozo Gallery that no longer is going, but I love the work. And these little swivel chairs with brass bases. And this is where we kind of sit every night. This is a piece that I inherited from my parents. It's a Swedish wedding chest. You'll note a date painted on it somewhere. And these were given as traditional gifts to brides. The piece of art is Charlie Hanovich, who's an Atlanta artist. My husband loves the Rolling Stones, so I gave him that for, I think, a birthday one year, and had Charlie do a Mick Jagger. This is for playing our albums, little contemporary lamp. Then moving over here, this is, again, you'll notice that I give my husband pieces that I really want for myself, but call it a gift. This piece I loved because it says, "Get your shit together," but you can't really see it. So it was a little more subtle. It's black on black. It's just a different matte and sheen. So I framed that in the neon acrylic to make it pop. We love backgammon in this house. So this is our acrylic backgammon table. And then this is a piece of Jerry Garcia from a Charleston artist, framed in, again, neon acrylic. This is a Geraldine Neuwirth piece from TFA Fine Art. And I love her collages and I love her use of color, super bold and bright. Moving around, again, another little nod. This is a favorite little Grateful Dead nod. What a long, strange trip it's been, with a nod to Jerry Garcia. And this is from Furbish Studio. I love their needlepoint pillows. This piece is, again, from the Florence Broadhurst collection from a company named Salamat. I love the detail and the design on this, and I think it's such a great juxtaposition to the traditional Swedish and the traditional bow front chest. These little collection of beaded African animals are favorites of mine. I've gathered them over the years at High Point Market. They're all beaded by women tribes in Africa, and they're paid fair wages, which I appreciate. So I always kind of each High Point market, I treat myself to another one. These pieces are by Stephanie Henderson, who's an Atlanta artist, represented by Greg Irby Gallery. And then lots of snakes and treasures that I've gathered from places around. The rug is stark carpet. I am a huge believer that animal print rugs hide all sins. So this has been amazing. I have leopard rugs and animal print, tiger, antelope throughout the house in many places because that really hides all sins. So this room, the walls and the beams came out of a barn in Pennsylvania. When my parents were building the house in the early 60s, my grandfather purchased a barn that was being torn down, and they used all the wood from that in this den for my parents as well as my aunt and uncle's house. This is my favorite room in the house. I designed this wallpaper with Paul Montgomery, who is a company out of Virginia. He helped me mesh a lot of ideas together to come up with the perfect paper. He now has it in his line. The blue and black base is based on a wallpaper that is in a restaurant in London. I'd taken a picture of that, and then obviously my love of animals of all sorts. So we incorporated kind of an India theme with Indian elephants, giraffes, which obviously aren't found on the same continent, but I didn't care. I kind of wanted to mix it all up. Horses, antelopes, more elephants. I had him add a tiger. At the time, my son was in boarding school at a school that tiger was their mascot. So that was a fun little nod. Beautiful birds. There's monkeys and butterflies, camels. So it's kind of a mix of everything. There's an Indian wedding scene on this wall. And this room just makes me happy. I love the black lacquer, which was obviously a very bold choice compared to what it was before, which was a soft yellow, very soft paint. I put silver Schumacher grass cloth on the ceiling to give it a little more sheen. The light fixture is from Curry & Company, and it has these beautiful little selenite crystals, which are supposed to bring good energy and good vibes to your home. So I loved the idea of that. The chairs I've had since I moved back to Charlotte in 1999. They've been in the same, it's the same tiger fabric that's on the love seat in the living room. They are Louis Solomon chairs with a Ralph Lauren no longer available tiger that I love, sadly. And table linens are recent purchase from India, Dascoli linens, and they are beautiful and handmade in India and hand printed. And I really appreciate their quality of workmanship. The table is set for a little birthday dinner for a friend. Again, Billy Bernstein glasses, Estelle glass, which out of Charleston, if you don't know, she makes beautiful glassware, all based on her grandmother's collection of glass. These plates I found actually at the Met in New York in their gift shop and used them for a show house, and they kept shipping them. So I had 12 shipped. They came in a box, no paper, no wrapping, all in shards. Reordered them, all in shards. So I finally have a set of them, but I also saved all the shards because the plates have gone up in crazy in value, and I thought it could be fun to make a mirror of a shard mirror one day. So never got around to it, but it's a thought. The flatware is vintage bamboo from Cherish in gold, which I love bringing in the gold and mixing gold and silver. And then the side plates are Lynn Chase, and it's part of her Monkey Business series, which I have as a breakfast china as well. So I love mixing in the different patterns together. Then moving around this side of the room, I love this tureen. It's part of the Haas Brothers collection for L'Objet, and they are contemporary artists, and they do these kind of monsters and these weird creatures, and I love this tureen. So it's a soup tureen, and these are the, or it actually might be, it is soup. It's soup tureen, and these are the ladles. And these large vases are part of Aaron Lauder collection. These tables I've had for a zillion years. Don't even remember. I picked them up at a flea market, I think. Metrolina when it used to be or Scott's in Atlanta, one of the two. I love tying in the lime green from other parts of the house with the little ottomans. This is a piece from a Brooklyn artist. Love this little shiny encaustic piece. This is one of my favorite pieces. Again, my love of black lacquer. I bought this at Scott's in Atlanta, which is a great antique show once a month actually. Love the blue chinoiserie figures. This piece is a bowl by Bertz Kaysen, who is a New Orleans ceramicist who has passed away, but his work is now being done by one of his apprentices. In here, I did a radius return brass rod with green silk taffeta curtains, and then a pretty French blue kind of cerulean velvet tape down the leading edge to kind of make the green pop out of the walls. Welcome to my entry. This is, again, the part that welcomes you into the home. One of my favorite things in this space is the runner. I had this custom made with stark carpet based on the original runner that Mario Boada had done in the house. I changed up the colors to make them more vibrant with pinks and purples and added a little black. The walls in here are Schumacher Miles Red deconstructed stripe. And then I used a small grosgrain tape all the way around to frame the whole thing. There was also originally growing up, there was a blue moire paper here with a similar tape that framed it. So I wanted to have the nod to that. This is the original bell jar that was in the house. Another piece of art by Sally King Benedict, who's seen other places in the house, from Haddell Brooks Gallery. I love these little funny hand benches from Interlude Home, I believe. This rug was a recent custom piece done by Post House Design, and they let me custom color a rug and obviously custom size it. This rug is another find off of Etsy. I was searching herky rugs, as I often do, and found the one with the horse and knew that I had to have it because it has horses and people in it. Entry table, I found at Slate Interiors, which is a great shop here in Charlotte, and had it lacquered this nice fuchsia magenta color with metallic garden stools underneath. Art from Haddell Brooks Gallery. I love these couture home lamps with the abalone shell and little gilded interior shades. To me, home means being comfortable in your own space. I feel like your space should represent your personality and reflect all the things you love. Obviously, I love color and I love animals, so that's kind of what defines my house. I love all the layers and I love collecting. Shopping is my superpower, so it's great that I have a job that I can do that every day. Thanks for coming by, Homeworthy. I appreciate you being here. See you next time.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Patricia. I'm going to show you around my home in Unionville, Pennsylvania. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Scan the QR code to subscribe to our new channel, Weddingworthy, where we celebrate amazing couples and the love stories behind their perfect day.
Hi Homeworthy, my name is Patricia Mae Olson, and I am the owner of Peaked PR and the Preppy Podcast. We are in Unionville, Pennsylvania right now. My home is on the smaller side. It completely was gut renovated when I bought it. It originally was very modern, almost 70s, 80s style. And we renovated it to look more like a Pennsylvania schoolhouse, more cottage style, I would say. It's very preppy, being me, very colorful and full of pattern, and just lots of collected pieces. The process of finding the space is actually really funny because I live next door to my parents, which everyone laughs and they're like, how does your husband deal with that? But it's quite lovely, I have to say. So how I ended up here was, at the time, when I was 23, I bought this house. So at the time I was working in Center City, Philadelphia at an agency and commuting into Philly every day. I originally was looking at places all along the main line where the train stations were and had looked at a lot of places but didn't fall in love with anything. So my parents brought up the idea to me. They're like, why don't you ask our neighbors if they would ever sell? So the house at that point had been empty for a while. Basically, the people that owned this originally, their son moved overseas and bought them a house literally a road over that's much larger than this. That way, when he was here in the States with his whole family, he could stay at this new place. So they didn't really have a need to sell this and make money off of this, and it still needed a lot of work. They had renters in here for a little bit and then stopped with that. So it just sat empty for a really long time. And when I approached them, they said, sure, let's do it. So welcome to my living room. It is very preppy, pink and green, as you can see. Something that I've done in the house is there's a lot of products from people I've had on the podcast or even some clients, and then just brands that I love, honestly. I'm a big supporter of small businesses and entrepreneurship, so I try to fill my home with that, which kind of leads me first here to this big yellow couch. I feel like a lot of people at first when I say I have a yellow sofa, they think that's wild, but it's honestly sort of a neutral. It's a pale yellow, so I feel like it goes with a lot more than people think, and it's just so cozy. So this is from Taylor Burke Home, Julianne Taylor Styles. She had this furniture business many years ago, and I have a lot of her pieces from when she had that. Now she is one of my friends. She's an influencer. She's on TikTok a lot, but I loved her furniture brand, so you'll see a lot of her pieces in our house. It's just so cozy. And right next to the sofa, I have a pair of these tables. So they're actually made by my dad. My dad is a very talented woodworker as a hobby. So growing up, he would always give my mom and I gifts that he'd make us. So these tables actually were a gift to my mom from him when I was younger. And when I bought the house, I kind of needed something here, so I stole them from my parents. And my dad had to make a new pair for my mom, but honestly on the bottom it probably has a little note from my dad that says Merry Christmas and whatever the date that he gave them to her is. And they're antique inspired, so they actually flip up. I think they're an antique candle holder style is what they are, but they're very special to me obviously because my dad made them. If we go over here, so the window treatments, they kind of inspired this whole room. They're from Fabric by Dana Gibson. I love Dana's design work. So I have a lot of her fabrics, a lot of her wallpaper, a lot of her decor pieces. I just love this print. I've had it in my house for many years now. And funny story, it has little pom-poms on it here. I have 2 Jack Russell Terriers. And so when the puppies were little, they actually tore the pom-poms up until as far as they could reach. So I had to get those re-put on. But I think it's just so fun. It's a little playful, even though it's a formal, long window treatment here. And then here's another one of these tables by my dad, like I said, that's so special to me. And over here, the ottoman is Sandia Home, which was a client of mine, but no longer exists, the brand. But I love the shape of it, how it's sort of a clover shape. It's quite large, and the legs are actually lucite. And if you flip it over, one of the things about the brand is it's lined with seersucker on the bottom and has a little watermelon charm. So I just love the special details of this. It's made in Ohio, and just great quality. And like I said, I just love supporting small businesses and entrepreneurs. On here, I also have a flower arrangement. I love flowers in the home. You'll notice I don't have a lot of live plants. I have mostly flowers because I can't keep live plants alive inside the home. Only outside of the home can I do that. So these flowers are actually from a local farm down the street. I think they've been growing them in their greenhouse for like 100 years or something. It's crazy, but they smell so beautiful. And so I love, that it's local and they're low maintenance compared to a plant. Then over here, this is another piece from Taylor Burke Home, just a little side table. I love it because it adds some texture to the space with the little alligator on it. This is actually a really funny story. So like I said, I have a lot of Dana Gibson in my home and I love her pieces. And one time I received this vase with a note in my mailbox, and someone wrote a note that they live down the road and they walk past my house a lot taking their dog for a walk, and they noticed the Dana Gibson lamps in my window, which I'll show you in a second. And so they said she must love Dana Gibson, and she followed me on Instagram. Randomly she found me just because I have a public profile and I'm a local influencer and podcaster. So she knew it was my house, just piecing together the pictures of the lamps and then seeing them on the outside. So she gave this to me. She said it doesn't match her house. It's one of Dana Gibson's older pieces, honestly. And I just thought that was so kind and kind of shows what it's like living here in Unionville. Everyone's so kind, and it's such a small town sort of feel. So I always think that is such a fun story, but it's a cool piece. These living room chairs, they actually were my grandparents. So about when I bought my house, my grandparents were downsizing and moving. So I have a lot of their pieces. These were my big splurge when I first bought the house because they originally were like a cream white color, and I spent a lot to have them recover this hot pink. It's very me, it's very vibrant, it's very preppy. I saw an article with Katie from Life with a Dash of Whimsy, or now I think her blog Stripes and Whimsy, and she had hot pink chairs like this, and I felt so inspired back then. So I had them redone in hot pink, and they're so special because they were in my grandparents' living room. So these are the Dana Gibson lamps that I mentioned about the vase that was found in my mailbox and inspired kind of that connection. They're just obviously very vibrant. You can see the pattern from outside of my home. The bookshelves here are built in. When I purchased the house, like I said, it was very 80s and more modern style, lots of angles. So the windows went all the way down to the ceiling, including these. So I had these built in to kind of make it look more charming and quaint and cozy. So they're filled with a lot of coffee table books that are either cookbooks that my husband cooks. I do not cook, actually. I'm very lucky that my husband does all the cooking. So he has a lot of cookbooks here. We have a lot of coffee table books from authors or bloggers that I've met in the past, and so they're signed by them. And then also a lot of wine books, especially on the bookshelf on the other side. My husband and I, we love wine, not just drinking it, but learning about it and traveling places to discover a new wine. So we've been to Burgundy and Champagne. We have been to Santa Barbara. We've been to Tuscany. So you'll see a lot of wine books and lots of really big wine books, actually. So this is one of my favorite coffee table books. Lydia, you guys have actually seen her home on Homeworthy, but I'm a member of her supper club. So I'm in a lot of pages of this, and I think it is so colorful. There's so many great tips for entertaining, different party themes, and such a great community of women and men to support in here. So this is definitely one of my favorites, and it looks so pretty on a bookshelf. This is another favorite book of mine on the bookshelves, and actually my husband's favorite too. So part of our honeymoon, we went to Burgundy, which is one of the most prestigious wine areas in the country and is just so cool to learn about. So this entire book is just Burgundy, which is such a small region actually when it comes to wine, but there's so many different vineyards here. So this literally has every plot of land essentially and vineyard in it, which is just mind-blowing to me. If you love wine, this is definitely a must get. Our tour guide actually had been showing us around with this. The green walls, it just naturally spoke to me. It is called Grasshopper and by Sherwin-Williams. And when I had built the house, this was the paint color I picked. It just drew me into it. But it's funny, I have a funny story because a few years ago, I actually had what I call a quarter life crisis where I decided for a second that I didn't know if I wanted to do PR anymore and maybe I wanted to do interior design. So I scaled back on some of my clients and I went and got a certificate in interior design from Temple University, and I shadowed an interior designer for a few months. And during those classes, though, I learned that, from my professor at least, this is her opinion, that green goes with everything. In nature, it's against literally every color out there all over the world. So it's a great neutral, even though it seems very bright and loud, it actually really works with a lot of colors. So I think if you're questioning a color to put on your wall, or maybe you're scared to dabble in colors for decorating, try green because it really does go so well with so many other colors. This cutie little elephant, I feel like he's really popular in design right now, and there's a lot of reproductions of him. But this we actually got from my husband's grandmother, and he sat on her screened-in porch in Minneapolis for many years, and I had always loved him. And so when she moved and downsized, I got this, and I just love it. I love how there's part of Will and his grandmother here with it, and it's just a great neutral. It goes with everything, and it's a really fun conversation piece. This orange credenza is one of my recent purchases in the past year or two. It's from Hibiscus House, and what I love about it is obviously it's so colorful, but it's this classic sort of chinoiserie shape, and so I layered it with a lot of picture frames. One of my clients years ago had a credenza and it was covered in picture frames, and I loved it. Like, it's a little bit chaotic, but I think it's so special because it has so many special memories to us. So there's some from our wedding, there's some from our trip to France and Italy, from our trip out west fly fishing, my bachelorette party. There's just so much core memories here, and I always love walking past it. Someday I hope to literally fill the entire thing with pictures and maybe take this away. But on here, we also collect these little baccarat flowers. I started collecting them during our wedding, so I've built a little bit of a collection of them and display them here. We had a lot of butterfly elements in our wedding a few years ago, and so they really speak to me. The overall style of the home is, I would say, traditional with a twist. My personal style, I always say, is preppy with a twist, and so it kind of combines traditional and preppy elements. It's very collected. There's so many pieces in here that are from my grandparents or Will's grandparents. So many pieces even that my dad has made for us. So it's a very collected, traditional, colorful home. So if you follow me this way, we'll go into the dining room next. Welcome to my dining room. It's actually open up to the living room. What's interesting about this house is that the front entry just comes straight into the dining room. There's no formal entryway, it just opens up into this, and this opens up into the living room, which I like it because it's great for entertaining the flow then back and forth through here. But I continued the green paint in here as well, and lots of Dana Gibson, you'll notice, fabrics in here. So let's start over here. This little stool I actually found at an estate sale. I love going to antique markets and estate sales and auctions, and that was a lucky day. It was in, I want to say, Bryn Mawr or Gladwin. I went and found that, and I also found a vintage set from 1960s of a Dior suit set. So I was having some good estate sale juju that day. But I recovered it with a Dana Gibson ginger jar fabric that ties in the pink and the orange throughout the spaces as well. So here, this kind of acts as our entryway table. We normally throw our keys up here. We have dog treats in this adorable little cookie jar. Our two little Jack Russells, they love their cookies. So this is a vintage piece here. It actually swivels. So if we're entertaining, we have extra seating, like it swivels and then opens up into a table. I think technically it's a card table is what it's referred to as, but we can use it for extra space for dining, or if you wanted to play a game on it, you could as well. And then over here, I have this bar cart from Society Social. I love Society Social. A lot of my big splurges when I bought the house were Society Social pieces. I just love how she uses color and how fun but still classic all of them are. So this bar cart is obviously filled with wine and drinks, but something special is this piece. So this is where you would store your whiskey or your cognac. And this was Will's grandfather, actually. He gave it to us. But the funny thing is there's nothing inside of these because we cannot find the key to unlock it. So his grandmother had given this to us, but like I said, we don't know where the key is. So basically you would originally store your alcohol in here and then lock it so you can't turn this to keep, servants or maids or kids out of it back then. And I just think it's really fun though, and a funny story, even though we can't find the keys. Going over here, I have these Society Social chairs. I love the bright pop of orange in this very classic silhouette, and it pairs nicely over here with all the gold accents that I have on this buffet. So all of the dark wood pieces, this 4-piece set, they all go together, and I found them actually on Facebook Marketplace, and I just had them recovered. So it's well loved and just classic, but like I said, I love finding a good deal or a steal and finding a way to use them. So on here on the buffet, I have some little antique pineapples, brass pineapples, more Dana Gibson lamps, some plates, and a Society Social bamboo mirror here. I really love to entertain, whether it's just having family over for the holidays, another couple for a dinner party, or even just throwing a themed party. I love a good theme. So I set this table pretty casually. A lot of times I would put a tablecloth too, but I kept it a little bit more simple. And I'll even do this if it's just Will and I, if it's a Sunday night and we're having steaks for dinner and I want to feel fancy. I'm a big component of using your nice and fancy things, or you'll never use them if you just store them away. So even if it's just the two of us, if I want to feel fancy or if I want to celebrate something simple, I'll just pull out our china. So here I have, this is actually our wedding china. It's the green apple lace from Motohita. And like I said, I love using it and layering it with other pieces too. These are beaded placemats, and they are from Beth Ladd Collections. They add some great texture and incorporate a couple different green patterns. And going off of believing in using your fancy things too, I also think pull out those linen napkins. I know they're a pain to clean, but they elevate so much and they make your guests feel like so welcomed and fancy. And like I said, even for a simple party. Then I did some floral arrangements here. I have a collection of vases and ginger jars from Dana's line. So I added in some pinks and greens and a touch of blue. And then I also have this ice bucket, which was Will's grandparents too. It's a little silver ice bucket. And I love the silhouette of it though. It's really a pretty one. These window treatments I recently had redone. I had them in just a hot orange originally, and I decided to do a little bit of a floral instead. I'm really leaning into a little bit more of preppy grand millennial mixed together. So I thought this is just really great, a little bit more elevated and sophisticated, I would say. But they still have the same vibrant colors that are in the space. So those same yellows, those same orange, greens, pinks, just in a different way than the other pieces. Over here is our china cabinet. And it's funny because before I met my husband, like I said, I don't like cooking. I do like to entertain though, but I actually had some Manolo Blahnik shoes that I would put in here for display just because I thought they were pretty and fun. And it's very Carrie Bradshaw-esque, I would say. But now that I'm married and, my husband might not necessarily appreciate a pair of high-heeled shoes in our china cabinet, I have collected a lot of Estelle glasses. So I have my collection of Estelle glasses in here, all different colors. But then I also have some really cute little espresso teacups from Will's grandmother. We have a collection of these for our wedding. She had given us these. And then I have a really cute little elephant tea kettle too, but these are just some fun little special pieces. We don't really use them, but I love to display them, and I love that they were from family members. Let's go from the dining room right into my kitchen because I want to show you something. I think it's a great tip if you have a smaller kitchen and love to entertain. So this piece is a custom piece that my dad actually made for me because our kitchen is very tiny. And like I said, I love having parties. I love entertaining. So this looks great, but it actually has a ton of storage. So it's sort of our matcha tea, our Nespresso, coffee station setup. And then under here, this is just a curtain, and it has coffee mugs, it has extra tea bags, it has different utensils. And if I'm having a party, what I'll do is I will take the stuff on top too and store them below. And then I can use this as a bar, or maybe put a charcuterie board on here. It just gives us some extra room to work with in a tight space. And the best part is that it's on wheels, so I can move it around. Like if I want to put it on the side of the counter instead, or in a completely different room and hide it, I can do all of that. So I think really, if you have a small space, get creative with how you can store things and stuff on wheels. I think you can do a lot with that. My favorite space in the house is probably this living room where we're sitting in right now. This is one of the few spaces in the house that I haven't redecorated or repainted walls or wallpapered walls in here like 3 times since I've owned it. This has stayed the original green the entire time, which I think means that I really love it. And it's something classic that can evolve with time with different elements like furniture and decor. I just love all the colors in here, the pinks, the greens, the oranges, the yellows. And it all kind of was inspired by Dana Gibson, her fabrics and wallpapers, and then I jumped off from there. So I love to entertain. I have a group of girlfriends that, monthly we have mahjong. I like to host parties for the derby or a great Christmas party or birthday parties. I love entertaining. So even though the house is small, every piece kind of leans into that and is smartly designed because of it. I have a whole prop room downstairs where I just keep lots of decor, lots of tabletop elements, and I love entertaining. So it's definitely something part of mine and my husband's lifestyle and part of this home. Welcome into our bar and game room area. This is a great place for hanging out with friends, and even just on a Friday night, Will and I like to come down here and have a cocktail for a change of scenery. So first, I want to start with the bar. I did this little cabana-inspired awning so that it looks like you're at a vacation bar. It's just so fun, I think. And then with that, we call this bar 2 Jack's Bar because we have 2 Jack Russell Terriers. So I have a little logo, if you want to say, for the bar. I have a sign with it. I have lots of napkins and drink stirs that say it. And I think that's a great tip. I've noticed it a lot recently too, is people are creating life logos or logos and branding for their home or a space in their home. And so that's kind of what we did down here with 2 Jack's Bar. On the bar, we have a lot of fun elements. For example, this we got made in Champaign region, actually, at the VUV, the headquarters or where they're located. So I have Unionville, they made that there, and it was a fun souvenir to bring home and place here on our bar. We have lots of wine then too from our travels, and this is just a small selection. We have some down here at the fridge and some on the other side of the room and then some in storage. Like I said, we love learning about wine and taking classes and traveling with our wine club. And over here too, you'll see that I have some of these champagne painted bottles. These were actually from our wedding, so I kept them. They have our wedding crest on them and the date, the florals from it. And a funny story with that is, so we did a champagne tower toast, and I popped both of these open and then poured. But I did not realize that I had one sparkling rosé and one champagne. So we kind of made a blend as I poured those down. But I think it's a funny story and a great memory. And I love that we were able to keep the bottles and have them displayed here. Then also over here, I have some more bottles that friends and family have given me painted. And this ice bucket also came from Champaign, from the VUV headquarters. And we have a big collection of wine corks from, different wineries that we visited or tried and enjoyed. So I think that's a fun little memento to just keep these and store them. And then occasionally Will and I will look through them and be like, oh, remember that wine, and talk about it. We have a wine fridge here too with these fun little towels that say pours by Patricia and cocktails by Patricia. It's just a little personalized touch. This is our game table. I host Mahjong with a group of my friends. Once a month, we alternate who gets to host it. So whenever I'm hosting, we play down here. My dad made this for me for Christmas this year, actually. So it's a newer piece. And what's great about it, I won't do it because it'll create a mess, but this top comes off and there's a whole other table under it. So I have a puzzle under there actually that I'm working on. But it has great features like this comes out, and so you can put your tiles on here or your cocktail. It's just very versatile. The chairs here, I originally was looking for chairs that I could paint the same hot pink as this. And I found these on an auction site. So they were actually the first auction site piece that I won. I bid on and won. And when I picked them up, all of my friends and family were like, you can't paint them. Like, they have such beautiful detail, like that woodwork here. So I compromised and I recovered them this great hot pink fabric from Madcap Cottage. Down in this space, I have a lot of Madcap Cottage fabrics. And then instead, what we did is we painted little pink and gold details on the legs to sort of tie that in, but not completely repaint and I don't want to say ruin the chairs, but to some people it might have been ruining the chairs if I painted it all hot pink. So we spend a ton of time right here. These swivel chairs, these are Taylor Burke Home. And originally in the space before I had that game table, we had 2 swivel chairs and then just a little cocktail table, and we would just hang out down here. But it's been so nice having the actual game table. But I still kept them in the space. They're great because they swivel. And I have some more Madcap Cottage fabrics on the pillows here. And this piece is really fun. So this is Varnish Collection. I had the 2 sisters of this brand on my podcast before. They make furniture and accessories with woven materials, and anything pink just naturally draws me in. So I think this is such a fun little statement piece and conversation piece when we're entertaining. Then this wood wine shelf, it doesn't look super fancy, but it's actually really special to me. So what's funny is my dad had made that when he was in high school in woodshop class. So I think it's great that somehow my family still kept it all these years and I ended up with it. And now even the fact that he makes so many great pieces with wood, I feel like this was probably one of the first things he ever made. So that's really special and has a lot of wine on it from our travels as well there. I worked at an agency in Philadelphia out of college. I have a degree in fashion merchandising and communications PR. So I always knew I wanted to be in the fashion industry, but I didn't want to be a fashion designer. So I kind of steered towards communications with that degree in fashion because of it. I worked at an agency in Philadelphia. They handled mostly liquor brands and did the marketing for large companies like Hendrick's Gin and Narragansett Beer, but then they developed their own brands inside and we would do the marketing and PR. But while I was there, I had started freelancing with more lifestyle and fashion related clients from connections that I had and professors that I had. So I kind of built up a roster pretty quickly and started my own business very soon after working at an agency, probably within a year or 2. I went off on my own. So I've had Peaks PR now for like 10 years. And I work with, like I said, lots of lifestyle brands, home decor, jewelry, clothing brands, pitching them, doing traditional press with larger publications and magazines. I do a lot of events with that as well all over the country. And I started my podcast in 2020, spring of 2020, working with all of these brands and seeing them struggle during that time in COVID. And I always had a blog, honestly, since college, and I would do interviews on that blog. And during COVID, I had wanted to start a podcast because I like to consume interviews and that type of media now through listening to podcasts instead of reading it on a blog. So during that time off in COVID, it kind of put some fire under my buns to figure it out and launch a podcast. So I've had the podcast now for about 5 years and it has just continued to grow. So that's, my other part of my career and business. Welcome to the master bedroom. I think the main focal point is obviously this sort of canopy valance bed. Growing up, I had a beautiful canopy bed that was pink and cream lace. And ever since then, I have wanted to recreate that and feel like a princess again, honestly. So we've had this made and it just makes it feel extra cozy. And honestly, I didn't think it would make the room feel bigger because it is a small space, but it makes it seem a lot taller, which I really, really love. So I have this beautiful mix of florals with stripes and pinks and greens and blues. I think a lot of people, when they see my house, they're like, it's so colorful, but really it flows because I use a lot of the same colors throughout. So even in here, it's a lot of pink, a lot of orange, and a lot of yellow, and I have those in the other spaces as well. I know this is like a huge faux pas, and all interior designers think ceiling fans are so ugly, but I cannot get rid of this. My husband and I actually use it every night for the sound and the breeze. So as much as it pains me and I think it totally ruins everything, it's something that we just have to live with. So over here, I have some antique vintage bamboo furniture throughout this space. I just love things that are chinoiserie and have a Palm Beach sort of element to them. So that's this as well, and a beautiful little bamboo tray and ginger jars with an O customized for us for Olsen. And I use them for flowers. These are by Lauren Haskell Designs, which, funny, for our wedding, I am very into tablescapes. So we had custom ginger jars made for that. They were similar to this, but they had the floral pattern from our wedding suite invite. So I love using her ginger jars throughout the house. You might notice these wood boxes, and I have another larger one over there. But these my dad had made for me. Growing up, he would give me, like I said, something that he made every year. So for a while, he was making me beautiful jewelry boxes. And these kind of just came from inside his head, his imagination. And so we store, our jewelry, my husband's watches, that sort of thing in them. But I think they add like such a great element of conversation and something different to the space. And I don't always have dark wood, and especially in here, so I like that it kind of grounds everything with a little bit of darker color. I love chappie wrap, being a Northeastern girly. Chappie wrap makes the best blankets, and especially they're dog friendly. You can throw them in the wash. They still come out feeling just as nice. So this is the chappie wrap from the Madcap Cottage collab, which we have this print downstairs that you saw on some other pieces. So I just brought it up here though instead, and they make seriously the best blankets. This is just a cute little trinket tray that I got in Williamsburg, Virginia, and it's actually the same maker of our wedding china, and I just think it's so silly and fun. So I had to have that, and normally I'll use it to put my Apple earbuds in there in the nighttime, or a charger, an iPhone, and it just sits bedside. And then here's another jewelry box that my dad made for me growing up. This one holds a lot of necklaces, so lots of hanging pieces. And this piece of art is a print from a local artist. Well, I think she's in California now, but she was local at the time, Constance Culpepper. And I think it's really fun. It has 2 dogs on it. It has preppy colors and stripes, and just spoke to me. This little bathroom is very tiny, but it's like a little girly jewel box, I want to say, with all the pink, and even the beautiful bow details on the window treatments that are the same fabric as the bedroom. But the biggest piece is this. It looks like wallpaper, but it's actually hand stenciled. And originally it was hand stenciled by my mom when I bought the place with orange and white. And then about a year or so ago, I redid it to be light pink and painstakingly had to do every little detail, which took forever, but it's just so special. I don't want to paint over it yet. I don't want to do away with it, but it was very time consuming. And then I just have some local art from a local artist here, pulling in some of those blue colors, and Wheezy Towels, another favorite of mine. I had Liz on my podcast before. I love anything with a monogram, being preppy. So these are great. They're the best towels, and they have so many fun colors and personalizations that you can get. All right, so if you follow me up here, I would love to show you our office next. Welcome to the office. This space, actually, my husband, he works from home a few days a week, so normally he's in here majority of the time. I have a separate office outside, but I do sometimes film some episodes of the podcast in here, so you might recognize the wallpaper on the other wall. But this space, I love it because compared to everything else, I want to say it's a little bit more masculine, which is why it's great for my husband. Some might say otherwise, but for me, it's a little bit more masculine. The blue pieces here They were a piece that when I originally bought the house, I had purchased them. They were just from a big box retailer, honestly, nothing special, but I just loved the navy. I love the size of them. And back then I was working in this space, so they've served us very well. I have some pieces from Dana Gibson on here as well. This duck or swan, I don't know which one he is, but we'll call him a duck for our purposes. I think he's such a cool and unique vase. I have just some daffodils in here, but you could just put regular flowers or sometimes those little foam greenery pieces, those balls. I sometimes stack a bunch of them inside, and then he's on top of a little green tray as well. So over here, this is the wallpaper that a lot of people probably see sometimes when I'm doing my podcast. This is Meg Braff. She is another favorite interior designer of mine. I love her use of color and pattern, kind of Palm Beach chic inspired pieces. So this is just such a lovely green chinoiserie pattern that I adore. The benches here, my grandmother actually had this and had given it to me, and I just had it recovered. It used to be a dark navy blue velvet, and it kind of was damaged over the years, so I had it just done in a lighter blue velvet. But I think it's beautiful and just a great spot if I want to come in here and have a chat with my husband while he's working, and pretty neutral actually too. This shelf is from Ballard Designs. I really like it because even though it's large, it doesn't look as large as it is, just because it's metal and very open. So on here I have a lot of books for when I studied interior design, when I studied fashion. I also taught fashion for a little bit at Immaculata University, where I actually attended college. And then there's some books of my husband's as well for law, but just a great collection of books that are actually useful. This is a special piece. So this is actually an ostrich egg. One of my aunts was living in Florida for a while and near an ostrich farm, and someone had given her an ostrich egg. So I actually had it repainted by a local artist a few years ago in this beautiful blue chinoiserie pattern, but I just think it's such a unique piece and is art, but in a different way. This is one of our guest baths. I love the green quadrille wallpaper. I think it's bright and cheerful and makes a small space seem bigger because of the bright colors. I have some Wheezy products as well in here. So there's shower curtain and towels. This is a great piece of art too. I think it's fun for a bathroom, a little nude, but not in a vulgar way, in a fun way. Another tip that I love for when I entertain is I always put out one of these little hand towel trays with some fun hand towels. So sometimes for the holidays, obviously I'll do something holiday themed or Easter themed, whatever it may be. But this one for spring, I just did some florals. And I think that's just a special little touch. And everyone loves to see what new hand towels will be in the bathroom next. Home is collected. I feel like I've said that a lot, but that's really what home means to me. It's not necessarily about following the trends or listening to what a designer or another person might tell you to do works or doesn't works. I think it's just about gravitating towards what you love and building from there and building collected pieces within that. Pieces that have special meanings and moments to you, whether it's something passed down from a grandmother or it's something you picked up on a trip. It doesn't have to necessarily be expensive or fancy. It just has to be meaningful and make you feel happy. Homeworthy, it was so fun having you at my house here in Unionville, Pennsylvania, but you have to go now, so bye.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Marcy. Welcome to my home in Florida. Come on in, let me show you around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Marcie Bond. Welcome to my home in Manalapan, Florida. I'm from the Bahamas and I'm a retired retailer. I had an apartment in Palm Beach, just off of Worth Avenue. And 5 years ago, I discovered this villa here, which is on a row of 15 villas. And they were built in 1973 by architect Henry Harding. And when I saw them, I immediately fell in love. and bought one 3 days later and sold my place in Palm Beach. When people come into the house, I love it when they come in and they say, wow, so much color. And the other thing that people often say to me when they come into this house is, oh, this reminds me of what it was like growing up in Florida, because it is an older home. And yeah, just people are afraid of color now, but not me. As I was doing it, I realized how red was such an important color in this home. It just pops beautifully. I love color, and it just makes me happy. Absolutely not a beige, neutral person, and I never will be. Welcome to the living room. When I first bought this home, I knew that I would like to put seagrass raffia wallpaper on the walls because that always adds warmth to a room. And again, color, color, color. And as I said before, I think incorporating things that are old are very important, more important to me than adding new things. So this piece is vintage. A lot of the things in here are antique. This is a French wallpaper panel that I purchased and then had it framed. It looks like original art, but it's just a wallpaper panel. It's kind of a good trick. This sofa I actually bought on eBay a few years ago, and I had it upholstered in this beautiful French fabric. I think it looks great, and that color always looks good in this house. Being from the Bahamas, I always have to have my Bahamian policeman in everywhere when I decorate. I have a collection of old Bahamian tourism ads that they take out of old magazines and sell on eBay. And I have them dotted around the house. But this one in particular is very special to me because this is around 1965. And a friend of mine came over recently and said, that's Mum. And it's a British family that I've known my whole life. And she's a friend. She's still alive and a very good family friend. And I only just realized recently that it's her. So every morning when I get up and I come out of the bedroom, I say, good morning, Jerry. So that's very special to me. And then here I have a little collection of English woolies and shell dioramas. And again, adding old and new I think is a very good kind of trick. So these two ships are around early 1900s. And then this is just a print that's new from Mary Maguire, but I think they mix well together. And these shell dioramas are also from an antique dealer in the Cotswolds in England. And they're also around 1910. And these little French guys here, bought from an antique store in West Palm Beach. And the matting here is actually made of tortoise shell. And they're around 1840 or so. And then my little John Darien hearts, just for a pop of fun. The pink here is a color called Comical Coral. I think it's Benjamin Moore. And I'm very meticulous. So I loved the color, but it was a bit too dark. So I had them lighten it by 50%, which they could do in the paint store. And so after a few attempts, I got the color that I wanted. But I just thought it was very Palm Beachy and very Florida. So I love the combination of that with the grass cloth. So I like to buy things when I'm traveling as well for the house. And these are just cushions that I bought in Mexico. They always remind me of my trips to Tulum. And this is another sofa that I purchased on eBay and had reupholstered. And these are felt cushions that I bought in England that are wonderful. And I have a collection of Bahamian art from a primitive artist by the name of Amos Ferguson, and that's what this one is. And I have a whole collection in the TV room, which we'll talk about later. Again, my Bahamian policeman. More, another shell box done by a friend of mine. And this book was put together by my brother, John Fondas, my twin brother. He had a collection of sailors' valentines. And he had his whole collection photographed and published this book with Rizzoli, and it's great. It is in the shape of the actual sailor's valentines that he had in his collection. And that was a very popular book. So something, I only have one copy. They seem to go missing all the time. When I'm putting a room together like this, I don't think too hard about mixing which colors with which. I just kind of buy what I think is pretty and I throw it together and I hope it works. Usually it works. If it doesn't, I just change things around, reupholster. But yeah, because I'm not actually a decorator and I'm not actually good at understanding what's going to look good in a space until it's actually in the space. So I do make a lot of mistakes, but I somehow get there in the end. The chairs here I thought were kind of a good neutral, but then I added the throws over the top in this color to tie it in with the two sofas and all of the cushions on the sofas. This shell mirror is mid-century and it's wrought iron. And I originally purchased this for my apartment in Palm Beach, but when I moved here, I had to bring it with me because it was too good to leave behind. These shell boxes here were made by an artist friend of mine, and she just does this sort of, she's a painter, but she does these shell boxes on the side, and she's a snorkeler, and she has a home in the Bahamas. We collected all of these shells together when we would go on the boat to the Berry Islands in the Bahamas. And she put these together for me and gifted them to me. So they're very special to me. So these are vintage Bahamian postcards that I also picked up on eBay. And they're, again, very sentimental to me, but also I thought very charming in any tropical house. And so I just had them framed and floated. And I just think they're really whimsical and fun and tropical. When I first came to see the villa, it was lovely, but had very heavy fabrics in it. So what I wanted to do was to make it lighter and brighter, and I absolutely love color. So I just wanted to modernize it and just make it my happy place. I have a lot of fabrics here in the house, which I always think make a house warm and cozy. And the more fabric in a home, the softer the sounds are, the acoustics are better, and it just is more cozy. Now we're stepping into the dining room, but just before we get there, I just wanted to point out this beautiful fabric that I used for my curtains. This is from Quadrille, and I just think it's an absolutely beautiful fabric that incorporated so many of the colors that I have in the room. And the name of the print is Les Indiennes, and it's one of my absolute favorites. And I have these bamboo shades, which are actually electric shades. And I think they always look great in any home, whether it's modern or old. So to divide the two spaces here, the living and the dining spaces, I put this vintage mid-century console here, which I thought, again, was a great little fun color. And I just put a few things on here that I love. I have a little obsession with heron, Hungarian hand-painted china. So I've been collecting pieces over the years. And this is another one that a friend gave to me as a gift. That's a very special one. And I just decorated with books and this is a sea urchin, just to kind of divide the two spaces. And this is the only probably new set of furniture I have in the home. I typically would always rather put something vintage, but I purchased this table during COVID when it was hard to get anything. So I like it, but to be honest, I would like it better if it was something older. But I thought this could be a temporary until I find something else. And then I have these lovely pagodas that were done by my friend Amanda Lindroth. She has a whole wicker collection that is gorgeous that she sells. So this dining set was from Serena and Lily. And again, I'm not a lover of buying things from catalogs, but it's definitely pretty and it serves its purpose for the moment. But eventually I'm going to find something probably vintage to put here. And I just had the cushions made to go over the top, just kind of give it a little color to add to it. This watercolor here was done by my good friend Alex Timchula. She's an artist from New Jersey who has a home in the Bahamas, and I just absolutely love it. Again, it's very whimsical and it's very tropical. And the more you look at it, the more you see. This pendant light I purchased from a photograph, and it came from Paris. And it was a little bit of an extravagant purchase. and a completely different color in the photograph. When I got it here and had it installed, I actually didn't like the color, but I was so invested in it that I just decided to keep it. So it's growing on me, let's just say that. So I always liked for my bar to be a little bit whimsical, of course. So I incorporated these little Bahamian policemen here. This is the Bahamas Police Marching Band, and if you ever go to the Bahamas, it's something you have to see. I have some bottles here that are fun. This one in particular is actually a very, very collectible bottle made by Nassau Royale, and all of my friends in the Bahamas are trying to get their hands on one. I finally got this from eBay after searching for about 5 years. Originally, this bar had some very dark wallpaper, so I changed it for this quadruple wallpaper that's called Crisscross, but I actually have this also in my kitchen and in a pair of chairs in the living room, just all tied together very well. And then up here, I thought, if you're in Florida, you've got to have a gator somewhere. This painting here was given to me for my birthday by someone very special to me, and it's a very special painting. It's by a Hungarian-American artist by the name of George Nemeth. And what's so special about them is that they're incredibly detailed. And actually they're best seen under a magnifying glass because they are that detailed. But they also look great from a distance. And he paints scenes in the Bahamas and Bermuda and also in the Mediterranean. And it's one of my favorite pieces of art that I own. We're moving into my little kitchen. I'm not big on renovating, so this kitchen is basically as it was when I purchased the house. I changed the wallpaper, but that was really about it. And it came with these beautiful French antique chairs that Lita Austin Foster had bought when she was renovating and decorating the house in 1997. And again, always good to have antiques. This is the same wallpaper that I have in the bar and also on the pair of chairs in the living room. And these are also old Bahamian tourism ads that I purchased on eBay as well and had those framed here. This light I bought during COVID and I absolutely love it. It took 1 year to get here. So this is just my little breakfast nook where I like to have coffee in the morning. This sink was actually here when I bought the house, and I absolutely could not change it. It's, I think, the funnest thing in the house. And it came from a company in the 80s and 90s that was very popular called Country Floors. And I think it's so fun. And this I bought at an antiques fair, and it's Italian, and I just thought it looked so fun for that space. And while I'm here, I just want to show you some very beautiful special plates I have here that are all hand painted in the UK. And they all have different animals on them. And they're some of my favorites. I love them. And they came with the house. Previous owners left a lot of goodies here, which is always a good thing. And then this is a vintage punchy plate from the 1980s that was done for Rosenthal, which my brother actually bought for me as a gift. And again, lots of color. I think it's perfect for the kitchen here. I call this house the doll house because it's really tiny. And for a lot of people, they don't like that. But me, the tinier it is, the cozier it is. It's a little bit like being on a boat. The bedrooms have somewhat low ceilings, but all of that just adds to the coziness. When I have friends come and stay, you know, we hang out in this bright living room, we hang out in the TV room, and everybody loves coming back, you know, because it's not your typical big house with a bunch of rooms that I'm not using. So now we're entering the primary bedroom, and this bedroom was quite a work in progress. The home, when I bought it, came with this flooring, and it came with this wallpaper, which I absolutely love. It sort of reminded me a bit of Laura Ashley in the 1990s. So I had this beautiful canopy made here, and I wasn't sure if it was going to work with the wallpaper or not. So I had that installed, and it worked beautifully. So it sort of all just came together. The little bamboo tables came with the house, and these incredible brass sconces also came with the house. I just changed the shades. So again, it's very cozy in here, and sometimes I don't want to leave. This lamp also, this mid-century lamp, came with the house with the wallpaper on the shade that matches the wallpaper here. These birds are Italian, and they are decoupage. And the amazing thing about the way they framed it is that if you take it off of the wall and look at the back, there's a beautiful Balinese fabric at the back. You could almost hang it the other way around. And I'm not going to say where the cushions are from, but they're not high-end. They're from Home Goods. I like to mix. This lamp here, antique lamp, came with the house as well as the chair. My wonderful neighbors actually gifted this desk to me. And this piece here is vintage fix reed, which I just purchased recently. And I bought it in white, and I painted it in a color that my friend Amanda Lindroth uses a lot, and it's called Southfield Green. And it is a fantastic neutral color to use, and it's great indoor and outdoor, and it just always works. This is a print from Mary McGuire, and she's very clever because she does them with these antiqued frames. So they actually look old, but they're new. And she does sometimes paint over the top a little bit to make them look original. And then another piece of herond that I love that my mom gave to me. Love that. This pair of chairs here came with the house, and it had a sort of very old-fashioned frilly fabric on it, and I had it reupholstered with this striping, and it just brought the chairs back to life, like as if they were new. But again, they're not. They're just something I recycled. And the house also came with these beautiful lucite TV stands. I'm a big TV person, so in all of my bedrooms I always have them. But they're super fun and very simple. So now we're in my little TV room, which is the most comfortable room in the house. And again, I don't like to buy things from catalogs. This is a Pottery Barn sofa, and I bought it for a couple of reasons. One is they have the best, most comfortable sofas for watching TV, but also the house is so small that an actual sofa could not fit through the hallway here. So I had to buy something that was a sectional, and they barely got the 3 sections in through the hallway here. And I have a collection of these Bahamian primitive paintings that were done by a painter by the name of Amos Ferguson. And I started collecting these in the late 1980s. And back in the day, he wasn't in a gallery, so you would go to his house, which was a shack, and he didn't have electricity. So he would take you to the back room where he had the art and shine a flashlight on the art, and you would just pick things from the floor. So I have 5 of these, which I covet. These 2 were given to me by my brother, which he gave to me, I think, in a moment of weakness, and I snatched them and took them as quickly as I could before he changed his mind. This is another antique piece that came with the house, and I thought it was super charming, and it fit the space perfectly. So it has never moved from this space. I just put some family photos in here. I bought these slipper chairs quite a few years ago, and they were in my apartment in Palm Beach. And I had this fabric put on, and kind of just kept it, brought it here, and then brought these cushions for them. I thought it was kind of a fun, whimsical way to add to it. And it all sort of ties in together with what's on the sofa here. And this beautiful brass lamp came with the house again, and I just changed the shade. That was it. And just little knickknacks and things here. More pictures. This is another painting from my Amos Ferguson collection. He predominantly painted on cardboard, which never really lasted. And this was one of the only paintings he ever did on canvas. So that's the most collectible one. Growing up in the Bahamas, my parents were in the retail jewelry business. And And in my late 20s, I got into the clothing business, and I had my own retail store for 20 years. And that was absolutely the easiest thing I've ever done and the funnest, because I was able to just buy beautiful things and sell them, which to me was a lot easier than putting a house together. So for me, putting a house together is very tricky, and I have to do it by trial and error because I'm not a trained decorator. So I end up making a lot of mistakes, but somehow it all comes together in the end. But it can take me a long time. This house actually took me 3 years. The painting behind me, I was actually on the floor framed for 2 years before I figured out where to put it. But I just wing it, and somehow I get there in the end. So now we are in my guest bedroom, and all I can say about this room is whimsical. I don't know how I put it together. It was an accident. But again, the canopies with quadrille fabric again, and these soldiers from Mary Maguire, again in the antiqued frames. And then up here we have our John Darien Napoleon. I try to have a sense of humor when I'm decorating a little bit. The furniture actually came with the house, but it was a brown furniture. And again, it's that Southfield green color that I used here on this and on the headboards. And I added this Matuk fabric from Lulu de Kwiatkowski because it's just so happy and fun. These birds on the wall here look like original art, but what they are actually is prints that are painted over the top of. And they're done by an artist in the Bahamas by the name of Bill Johnson. And he's been doing these since the 1960s. And he does maps and birds and fish. And we've had them in all of our homes growing up in the Bahamas. And these are old, but he still produces them. And I had them in another home with white frames. And then when I moved here, I had the frames painted brown. I purchased these two adorable little paintings on Facebook Marketplace in the Bahamas, and brought them over to Florida and had them framed. And I was asking a friend the other day who the artist was, and it turns out that the artist of these was my art teacher when I was 12 years old in the Bahamas. And so they have so much meaning to me now, on top of being just adorable pictures. And she was a lovely teacher. All of our teachers in the Bahamas were British, and so that's very sentimental to me. These little benches here are vintage fixed reed, and I had them upholstered and painted and had them in another home, and they just worked perfectly in this space. But once again, mid-century seems to be what I always revert back to. So now we're on my little back porch, which I love hanging out here, especially in the winter. I have a sort of combination of vintage furniture that I purchased in junk shops and basically painted myself with Rust-Oleum spray. And the plants are, believe it or not, these wonderful pots are from Wayfair. And yeah, just again, vintage wrought iron furniture, just comfortable places to sit and hang out. The tablecloth I purchased from Etsy, of course, and it's just a beautiful Indian fabric that tied in a lot of the colors that I have inside the house. The thing that gives a home a soul to me is having a lot of old things in the home. So probably 80% of what's in my home I purchased secondhand. Sofas, which I recovered. I always love to keep things, when I buy a home, to keep a few things from the previous owner, because I think it kind of adds to the charm and to the feeling. I have a lot of original art, not a lot of prints. I've got things that I have collected over the years, like shell boxes and shell dioramas. And definitely having old things in a home give it a lot more character. Home to me is a place where you can be traveling, you can be out in the crazy traffic. You arrive home, you open the door, you walk in, and you just feel, this is where I'm meant to be. And to me, it's a place that I don't like to leave. I mean, I love going out, doing things and traveling, but there's truly no place like home. when you live in the house that you created for yourself.
Today, we're stepping into the kaleidoscopic world of Dany Daisy, textile designer, author, fashion creator, and the visionary behind Trixie Mattel's Palm Springs Motel. Celebrated for her fearless embrace of color and unapologetically maximalist style, Daisy has channeled her artistry into her very own Daisy Dreamhouse, a retro-inspired Los Angeles home that feels like a living extension of her imagination.
Welcome to my cloffice. This room is a closet office hybrid. We needed more storage space. With a lot of old homes, they did not have enough closets. Having a closet room is every girl's dream. I'm able to have all of my clothes here in this beautiful space, but we couldn't just have it be a closet that felt a little wasteful. So the hybrid was really the way to go here, and that way we get the most use out of the space.
Every corner of this 70s-infused retreat radiates personality, with dynamic patterns, groovy silhouettes, curated treasures, and rich, saturated hues that transform everyday living into something extraordinary. And just when you think you've uncovered it all, Dany unveils a hidden speakeasy tucked inside the house, a glittering nod to disco-era glamour and her love of playful, transportive design.
This might look like just an average bookcase, but it is a secret door to our super special retro rec room. How fun is this space? And I love that it's such a departure from the kitchen that our hidden door feels like a portal into a different decade.
From hand-painted murals to bespoke textiles and nostalgic details, the Pink Dreamhouse is more than a home. It's Dany's canvas, a place where fashion, art, and interiors collide to create a world that's vibrant and uniquely hers. This home dares you to dream bigger, embrace maximalism, and celebrate the beauty of self-expression. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. A big thanks to Uncommon Goods for sponsoring today's episode. The holidays will be here before we know it, and I like to give gifts that feel personal and thoughtful. And at Uncommon Goods, you can find just about anything. They're an online marketplace filled with meaningful, creative gifts from independent artists and small businesses. Whether you're shopping for a reader, a foodie, or a gardener, they have tons of categories for gift giving, and everything is one of a kind. I'm looking for a gift for Michael. He loves chips and salsa, so this snack server is perfect. And then I thought I would pair it with a Mexican mortar and pestle so we can make homemade guacamole. Every purchase supports small makers. Plus, Uncommon Goods donates $1 to a nonprofit of your choice with every order. They've already given back over $3 million. So whether you're shopping for your secret Santa or your entire family, Uncommon Goods makes holiday gifting easy, meaningful, and delicious.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Dani Daisy, and welcome to my magical maximal home in LA. I'm Dani Daisy. I'm an interior and print designer and author of The Maximalist, and this is my home in Los Angeles, California. My husband and I have had this home for 2 years now, and we've definitely done a lot. It was a blank white space, and we've added so much color and print. The architectural style is kind of interesting. You'll see throughout the tour, it's a very funky house. It has a lot of weird nooks and crannies. It's like a little bit craftsman. It was labeled traditional on Zillow when we bought it, but we really tried to lean into that charm and bring like the charming character back into the space. Welcome to my living room, my favorite room of the house, and also the cover girl of my book, The Maximalist. I love having one of these books sitting out on the coffee table in the room because people always walk up to it and they're like, wait a second, we're in this space. So these ceilings were one of the biggest reasons why we bought this house. They are so tall and expansive. It already came with all of this really beautiful wood and vaulted ceilings, but we did end up adding the skylights, which made a huge difference in bringing light into this space and also added architectural interest to the space that wasn't necessarily there before. We also swapped out all of the lighting in the ceiling. It was all recessed lighting, and we swapped it for these really beautiful semi-flush fixtures. We tiled this entire facade of the fireplace. Before it was just this black metal box, so we painted the metal to match. We added this mantle, we added the lighting, and created a whole moment where there really was none. This is a vintage peacock fireplace cover. I'm obsessed with them. And with the tile colors, we really wanted to bring in the colors of the room. So we have this really beautiful hunter green, more of a minty color, yellow, and then cream. And you can see those colors tied in throughout the rest of the room. For me, tying in color again and again is how I pull off these crazy pattern-filled spaces, but make them feel seamless and make sense. The biggest piece of furniture we have in this room and the whole entire house is this massive U-shaped couch in this gorgeous golden yellow color. We did a half wall here and added trim to this space, which kind of gives it that charm as if it was always there. It really fits the house and the theme. And as you can see, my color scheme is tied in there as well, tied into the couch. It's also tied into the wallpaper. The wallpaper is a custom print I designed. And you can see that wallpaper is also on these chairs. So I love to put my prints everywhere I can, whether it's the wall, on pieces of furniture, and this print is also on the cover of my book. My most used space in the house is our smallest room. This is the nook. It is so cute. When we first bought this house, it was staged as a little office, and we would have never used it that way. So instead, we found the perfect shaped couch that fits just right in here. We wallpapered it, painted the ceiling, and now it's just this cozy little nook, and I live here. So this space is a little more monochromatic. We do have some pops of yellow, but I've heard people refer to this as the womb room, and I mean, obviously very appropriate right now, but I feel like there's something about just being enveloped in this cozy, warm tone that feels like a big hug. And this space is all about being cozy, and it just fits that vibe perfectly. My background is in art and fashion and apparel graphics, textile design, and eventually ended up doing interiors and kind of took a lot of that knowledge of print and color and designing a big colorful clothing collection into designing my spaces. And I really have a lot of color confidence, I would say. So I'm not afraid to go for it in a space. With this particular space, what I really wanted to accomplish is traditional with a twist. So we kind of lean into some of those more traditional elements like trim and wallpaper, but we also have like the bright colors, and a lot of the wallpaper prints, which I actually designed, are a little more on the abstract side, but still kind of have that traditional vibe. And underneath our little plant wall, there was this awkward soffit in the living room that didn't really work to put a piece of art or something. So we decided to add a whole plant shelf wall. And I love what a cool transition it makes, especially when they get really overgrown, into our dining room. This dining room is connected to the living room, but the colors shift a little bit over here. As you can see, there's more of this pink terracotta color. And even our walls, they go from having the two shades of green and the yellow to having a pink instead. So the room slowly shifts as you walk into it. And I did that on purpose so it felt a little different and a little bit like its own space compared to the rest of the living room. Another way we really made this room feel a little separate than the rest of the space is by wallpapering the ceiling, creating its own little moment. I got this really cool light fixture. I added a ceiling medallion, which is one of my favorite hacks to bring a little more character into a space. This is also a place where we end up working a lot, And one of my favorite things to do with a dining table is to skip the dining chairs, they're not comfortable, and just use slipper chairs or just regular living room chairs as the dining chairs. And when we're working here all day long, it's super comfortable. You never want to leave. Even when we're hosting friends, it's just so cozy and you could sit here for hours chatting. In this little corner, we have our bar cart, cute little shelves with a wavy motif, and we fit the shelves inside of the molding, which I thought was pretty clever and a good use of space. Pink and green will forever be one of my favorite color combos. We've had full pink living rooms in the past, and for this house, my husband was like, maybe not a full pink living room. So I saved the pink for this little area as a little bit of a compromise. I think I learned to be more risky with my design choices by designing clothing. You're designing by the season, so it doesn't feel as serious or intense. And I feel like when people make decisions for their home, they feel like it's this permanent, forever decision that they're gonna wanna love for decades to come. And I had just never designed that way. I was used to designing seasonally, so I kind of applied that same carefree, like what I love right now approach to my interiors. And surprisingly, I've actually loved them for longer than I would if I would have just followed trends or tried to play it a little more safe. Like, these are spaces that I just go for the things that light me up and get me excited. And the dining room opens to our colorful kitchen. When we originally bought this house, this whole wall was a wall, and there was one little square door entry to the kitchen, and we blasted it open, created a bunch of areas to entertain and hang out. Now it's so open. I love to hang out here while my husband cooks for me. And we also added this little nook in the corner. I'm a sucker for a kitchen booth, and I wanted to have both the bar and the booth, but we're working kind of within a tight space. But my husband is very good with configuring things in tight spaces, and he figured it all out. So I got my booth. I love it. We use the same gorgeous terrazzo counters from the bar to the kitchen booth table to the rest of the counters. We got these custom cushions made with a little wavy pattern. This is another one of my original prints. Did this really cool plate collage on the wall. The vibe I was going for in this kitchen is your grandma's Italian kitchen, and I feel like the diamond floors really lend itself to that. Just like the little charming elements like the scalloped lighting, and of course terrazzo counters. I'm obsessed with these. Something else that we also did was add trim to all of our cabinets. They were plain shaker cabinets, and we wanted to bring in that charm, so we just glued these trim pieces right in and then painted it all bright green. And then over here, this might look like just an average bookcase, but it is a secret door to our super special retro rec room. So I grew up in Los Angeles, and I feel like that definitely has lent itself to my colorful, funky, vintage-inspired design style. I came from a very artistic home where that was fostered in me and my sister growing up, always to like draw and paint and really experiment with color. My parents weren't afraid to play with color in my house growing up. My mom painted all our kitchen cabinets raspberry one day. So it was something that was surrounding me growing up, and I think that really helped shape who I am today and why I love color and the style so much. How fun is this space? And I love that it's such a departure from the kitchen that our hidden door feels like a portal into a different decade. This room felt really random. It was just a room off of the kitchen, and I think by adding the secret door and doing something so fun with it, it makes it feel really intentional. It's like a little speakeasy. People love the party trick of opening that door and revealing this really epic, fun space. We love to host game nights in here. We hang out, listen to music. We have a bunch of instruments on the wall. I am such a big fan of 70s design, and this was one room in the house I was like, all right, we're gonna go for full 70s. And since it's sort of this hidden speakeasy, to me it was allowed to kind of be different from the rest of the house. This couch print is one of my original prints. As you can see, it's not only on the couch, this is a collab I did with Joybird, it's also on the wall and the curtains. And I'm such a fan of monochromatic print moments. A lot of people like to do monochromatic color, but I like to go full force with a print on everything in a space. So we bought this home from a musician, and he already had this little stage with the record collection built in, so it was just perfect for this space. We also have these guitars in their little cases. I thought it was such an iconic little rock and roll Hall of Fame kind of vibe, and these guitars are just so gorgeous, they deserve to be displayed. And last but not least, we have a disco ball in the center of the room. What 70s rec room would be complete without it? This thing is working. We have the light, the spinner, and it's a real good time. What's so cool about this home is it's in like a little hillside area, and it feels like a little tree house. Like it's our own little sanctuary. You'll see our outdoor space. It's very naturey and fun, and I really wanted to lean into that like greenery that the house is surrounded by. So we ended up painting the whole exterior of our house green. We used a lot of green from our living room to our kitchen, and that was kind of like the main color I was focusing on for this particular house. I think my favorite room in the whole house has to be the living room. It was initially these big, tall, vaulted ceilings that made us want to come look at the listing when we bought it. And I just loved the like wood tones on the ceilings. We ended up adding skylights, which brought so much light to the space. We swapped out all of the lighting fixtures and really just wanted to focus on making this ceiling the centerpiece of the house. And next room up is our primary suite. Here's our main bedroom. This room is purple and gold, and purple is a color I don't use a lot in design, but I like to try everything, and it was a challenge for me to use purple in a way that felt really elevated and sophisticated, and I think we pulled it off. We added this really cool half wall trim. We have striped grass cloth on the bottom, one of my original wallpaper prints on top. We have also the same print on the bedding. Again, my monochromatic print moments that I love so much. Have really fun striped curtains, and this room is like very cohesive and intentional, and I feel like that really helped us make it feel very polished and finished. This room is kind of tight, and our senior dog right here was having trouble getting into bed, and we couldn't really find the right staircase situation that was cute or end of bed bench that actually fit. So my husband made this one, and we upholstered it with a striped fabric, and now she can get into bed and we can walk through, and it looks really cute. Another fabulous ceiling medallion, and then we added a lot of different wood tones to this space. To me, it sort of grounds the very feminine purple. Purple can feel a little juvenile, and the wood elements kind of make it feel a little more grounded and adds a different feel. Our next room was so fun, I can't wait to show you. Welcome to my cloffice. This room is a closet office hybrid. We needed more storage space. With a lot of old homes, they did not have enough closets. But I also needed a space where I could work. So my husband helped me add all of these cabinets to the wall, and he framed them in. We added molding. We did a half wall with paint, wallpaper on the upper wall, and wallpaper on the ceiling. We got this wild chandelier that just is the centerpiece of this room. A trick to having a big chandelier in a small space is putting like a desk or a table underneath it. And got this really cool office table that also works well for folding laundry and working. Having a closet room is every girl's dream. I'm able to have all of my clothes here in this beautiful space, but we couldn't just have it be a closet. That felt a little wasteful. So the hybrid was really the way to go here, and that way we get the most use out of the space. And right across from my cloffice, we have the bathroom. This bathroom was already green when we got it. All of the wall tile was here and I thought it was so cool. But we did end up adding this terrazzo floor, this really beautiful vanity with the matching vanity top, really cool vessel sink, and really leaned into the green. I always loved both home and fashion growing up and thought I had to choose one or the other, because that's kind of what they tell you in high school. Like, all right, what are you gonna major in? Like, what's your career choice? So I ended up choosing fashion initially, and I always loved fashion and art, so that led me to apparel graphics, textile design. But I still loved designing my own spaces, and that was still a huge passion of mine. So throughout the years of building my clothing line, was able to buy my first house in Palm Springs, very fun and funky and mid-century. And my clothing line was very colorful and vintage inspired as well. And just kind of designed this space very similar to the vibe of my clothing line and shared it on social media. I was always very transparent, running my business on social media. It was like initially my clothing line's Instagram, but I treated it like a personal Instagram. So I was sharing my spaces and kind of my life in color, like a very maximalist lifestyle. And that was really kind of how I ended up shifting into more of the interior space, because people loved that sort of mix of fashion and home, and there's so much overlap with the two. I'm definitely inspired by vintage design. I love the 60s and the 70s. It was such a fun, bold era in design. But I also love like Art Deco style, 1920s, traditional style design. I really love it all. And I think as a designer, I'm just always wanting to try new things. So I'm constantly exploring new styles, new color schemes, new ways to design a space and make it special. And the tour keeps going to the downstairs portion of our house. This is the downstairs den. It is such a fun and colorful space and a little bit of a departure from the rest of the house. So we have our own little kitchen down here, these really fun statement vintage pieces. We eventually want to redo this to make it even more cute, but for now, the really cool appliances definitely help. The biggest change we made in here were the floors. They were dark, dark wood, almost black, and it made this feel more like a basement or a dungeon. So my husband ground down all the floors. We painted this amazing checkered pattern and we resurfaced it, and it now matches the upstairs, and it brought so much light into this space and made it feel like a warm, cozy space that you want to hang out in. When we first got this house with the dark floors, and this was metal, and this space was just very industrial, and it wasn't cozy or welcoming. So I really wanted to counteract that with my design choices. This, one of my original wallpaper prints, is a little folksy, a little grandma, if you will. The beadboard, the curtains, the whole vibe is a little more cozy granny. And I also have my grandmother's art on the wall, which kind of makes sense in this space. My grandma was an amazing artist, and she really loved and knew how to use color, and she's definitely one of my biggest inspirations in design. It's wild to have 2 living rooms, but we actually use this space a lot when we rent out our upstairs for photo shoots. We also use this as a guest suite. This is a pull-out couch. We have a guest room attached to it. It really has everything you would need. It's like its whole own separate space. It even has a little dining area, an office area. I also intentionally switched up the wallpaper on this side of the room to kind of give it a little bit of that separation and make it feel like a little bit of a different moment. Lighting fixtures are such a cool way that you can easily elevate your space just by swapping them out. And then you have a whole statement right here, like above our dining room. The color scheme in this room, I wanted it to feel kind of vintage Americana. We don't have any blue upstairs in our house, so I really leaned into the blue down here. And again, that ties into my grandmother's artwork. She used a lot of blue. So I feel like wherever we live, I need to have a blue room so I can have her art there. I feel like it was always a big dream of mine to write a book, but it's just one of those dreams that seems like it's never gonna come true. But I think just by being bold and putting my work out there and it standing out really helped build an audience, and that's how my publisher found me. So I got to accomplish my dream of writing a book, and I really put my everything into that book. I talk all about my journey as a designer from fashion design and then how I got into interiors. And in my book I share some of my earliest spaces where I wasn't as well-versed as I am now, and I was still learning. And I think it's really cool to share that process and the journey along the way. And some of these first spaces I designed where I was maybe just doing like one color for the whole room. Now I'm trying to put like 4 or 5 colors in a room. And I really wanted to share my whole journey along the way and hope that that encourages readers to be a little more bold and a little more daring in their everyday life, from what they wear to what they decide to paint a wall in their house. I think that that's something that you can cultivate and build confidence and work towards, and I just hope to be an inspiration for others. This is our guest room. This home was full of so many unique little spaces and nooks, and I guess this used to be the previous owner's studio space, which is why it has these little windows and had the little stage upstairs. It's a very quirky home. This is also a little room, like half the size, like a room cut in half, and it's not done yet, but we plan on making it a really cozy little zen spot off of our guest bedroom. We went for print clashing in this room. As you can see, the wallpaper and the carpet, it's like a similar print, kind of similar color scheme. There's a lot going on and they're kind of fighting each other, but in a really fun visual way. And I made that work by actually adding more print. Sometimes the only way out is through, and to just keep going and leaning into that maximalism. So we added a checkered rug on top of the carpet. We added really cool bedding and just kind of kept layering on different prints, and that's how we made it work. These carpet tiles are one of my favorite kind of hidden secrets, I would say. So these are about this size carpet tiles, and you just lay them down and you can cut them to fit the edge of the room. You can make them a big rug. I like to use them as a carpet. I feel like carpets are coming back in unique and unexpected ways like this, and it feels very vintage hotel. Since it's a guest room, I really wanted it to feel like our guests were here on holiday and like it was a departure from their everyday life. This wood wall was already there, and I really liked it as an accent wall and to kind of keep it more earthy. I found this cool woven art piece by Pelican House. They are numbered and they only do a certain amount, and I thought it was just a really pretty piece for this room. Working on the Trixie Motel was another one of those wild dream come true projects that sort of just fell into my lap by putting my work out there on social media. A casting producer found me and contacted me and asked if I was interested in redoing a vintage motel in Palm Springs, which was just like the coolest concept ever. And then like as the project went on, they revealed more of the details, that it was with Trixie Motel, and it was this amazing pink vintage motel that I was already familiar with. And I just have so many ties to Palm Springs from my first home being there. My mom is from there. I love vintage design and bringing vintage spaces back to life. So everything about this project was such a dream for me. It was definitely one of the coolest things I've ever done. We spent 4.5 months out in the desert working on the project. My husband was there with me because he helps me with everything. My God, I would not be able to do all of this without him. It was a wild ride, and it was all filmed for TV. We're on HBO Max, Trixie Motel. You have to check it out. It's such a good show. The timeline was so real. In 4.5 months, we turned an outdated and pretty run-down motel into a beautiful themed motel. Every single room is a different theme. We really went for it. It is such a fun, happy, playful space. And I feel like we were able to accomplish the themes and just the overall theminess of it, and it being a drag motel, but in a very like classy, upscale way. I love to make kitsch really elevated and beautiful, because I think you can have both. You can have fun, colorful design, and it can also be done in a really beautiful, artful way. Now let's take this party outside. This is our personal backyard oasis. And believe it or not, this space was actually a gross gravel driveway that we never used. It had a chain link fence, and we ended up doing this really cool checkered lawn. We added this whole second tier on top. We added a cowboy pool. I love the high-low vibe of a cowboy pool, and we really try to elevate it by painting fun colors, getting these really nice benches and cushions. I like to treat designing an exterior the same way I do an interior. So I have a bunch of cozy seating, little vignettes, conversation moments, and I create a space that you actually want to sit and hang out with your friends. We love hosting back here. We love hanging out in the cowboy pool. It's just such a magical space that was literally unused before. We have tons of activities in the backyard, including this ping pong table. I was a big fan of the show Love Island, and they have their pink ping pong table that was so cute, and I needed my own that actually matched our house. So I found this amazing mint green one from Ledge Loungers. I love finding things that are aesthetic, but also practical and fitting them into a space. Same with this matching dartboard. How cute is it? This is our epic deck. This was here when we first bought the house, but it was all painted red and it felt angry and not relaxing. And adding this dark green totally transformed the space. It has gorgeous views, trees everywhere. It has this really cool covered area, a built-in fireplace moment, and this really neat floor that my husband and I did myself. It was all concrete before, but we painted it with a stencil using concrete paint, and it worked like a charm, and now it looks like a tile floor. I feel like your interior and your home is so much more than just a physical space or something that's like trivial or shallow, if you will. I think that it's something that can truly affect your day-to-day life. Your space can bring you joy and happiness if you're building it around things that you love and things that spark joy in your life. And I think that that can not only make your day-to-day life a little happier, but bleed into all areas of your life and inspire you to be a little more bold and daring and just joyful. Well, Homeworthy, it was so fun to show you through my home in LA, but it's time that you get out of here. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.